I wanted to start by just giving a little bit of context for what you heard in the video so that you have a sense of what is it that we did. And our project started from the premise that we do have these deep inequities in our educational systems. And amidst all of the debate about how to fix our schools and our education, we tend to overlook a source of expertise, a very powerful source of expertise about students, about their learning, about their culture and language, about their needs and interests and priorities, about their communities and their histories, those deep histories. And that's the parents, families, and communities of students themselves. And so we worked to create this suite of tools that Anthony mentioned at the end of the video. And as you can see, those took different forms. We created some common indicators and did some case studies. And one of the things that we did more recently near the end also is we worked with a group of parents and teachers, principals, and district leaders to create a curriculum, a new curriculum. And one of the things that really ties those things together, all of these things together, and one of the things we want to emphasize is this notion of this broader process that we're engaging folks in. And this idea that parents and families and community leaders are fellow educational leaders and are co-designers. And when we engage folks in that kind of co-design process, we get better results. And so that idea and that process is something that emerged out of the work that we did with our various partners. This is a set of principles that came out of that, because it turns out that we can't just take a group of parents and throw them in a room with a group of teachers and principals and other educators and have really productive and meaningful collaboration. Because schools aren't magical places that are immune from the rest of our societies. The same dynamics of race and class, power and privilege play themselves out in our schools as well. And so these are a set of principles that helped us to think about how we might be able to engage in these more equitable, collaborative kind of process. And this one at the bottom in particular I want to emphasize here, because this co-design process is something that continues on in both the work that you'll hear about that Joe's engaged in and the continuing work that I'm involved in as well. And we really talked about what does it mean to begin with and prioritize families' goals and concerns. And it turns out when you ask families, what is it that you want for your child? They don't say, I just want higher test scores. Yes, they want higher test scores, right? And they want their children to be healthy. They want their children to feel safe, to feel confident, to feel good about who they are in the world, to be able to solve problems, to work with other people, to live in a diverse society, to be part of a just democracy. And so that idea is one of the things that's really motivating excuse me, a new research project, and that is a sort of a continuing thread that goes into a project called the Family Leadership Design Collaborative. And so this is a new project along with Dr. Megan Bang, who is here as well tonight, and other colleagues as well, supported by the Kellogg Foundation, where we're really taking this idea of co-design to a national level. And we've convened a group of transdisciplinary scholars, family and community leaders to really think about how might we co-design some new research, what we call next practices or next research, and indicators that really center non-dominant families and their well-being in the pursuit of systemic transformation and educational justice. So a group of us are about to get on a plane around 5:30 in the morning tomorrow to go to Chicago for our first full convening. And you can see here a list of some of the institutions represented in our design collaborative. So it's a really exciting moment, and it's also pretty terrifying to be bringing all of these scholars and leaders together. But we've been using this image here as a way to begin to talk about some of the foundational ideas behind the work. And if we think of plants, sorry, it keeps beeping there. If we think of plants as students and families, we have this metaphor of what does it look like for them to be growing in the midst of many challenges and barriers, and thinking about that pavement. And we use this idea to sort of pose a very provocative and deceptively simple question. What would it take? What would it take for us to center families in these efforts around educational systemic transformation and educational justice, and to see the roots. We heard some of those earlier when we were hearing about the museum. We think about that in the land that we're on. We think about the cultural roots that Mia was talking about. How might we begin to really see those roots, think about how to nurture those roots and the connections between them, and also think about the broader ecologies around those plants, the schools, the other learning institutions and places of learning in the community, and to sort of create and nurture the conditions for students and families and communities to thrive. So that's the question we'll be grappling with as we move forward. I'm going to hand it over now to my colleague, Dr. Lott.
Thanks, Grant. How's everybody this evening? Great to see so many familiar faces and also new. So as Ann talked about, there was a lot of principles that emerged from our Equitable Parent-School Collaboration Project. So one of the critical ones for me was that all stakeholders need to be at the table when designing an initiative. So when I think about myself as a faculty member who studies higher education, as a father and a husband with two small black boys, President Obama's initiative and all the things that are sort of going on, I started asking myself, what can I do in my community and at the UW? So I started researching issues of black males on UW's campus. And what I found was that, there's less than 1% of the population, at the UW. And also black males have one of the lowest graduation rates. So I toyed with the idea of starting a black male initiative. And if I did, since the numbers are so small, it'd be like me and 3 other brothers. So that didn't make sense. So then I said, well, let me start looking at sort of other groups, of males on campus and see sort of what the issues are. And what I found was that 4 other groups had similar enrollment and graduation rates as black males. And they were American Indian, Pacific Islander, Southeast Asian, and Latino. So then I said, okay, Emil Petrie and I were talking about this. Emil is actually the gentleman in the second row in the second column. We decided to bring together a group of people, community members, faculty members, staff, and students, to talk about the issues associated with these 5 groups of males. And over a series of meetings, it eventually emerged into what we call the Brotherhood Initiative. So if you take a look at this sort of collage, to me, it sort of represents what the Brotherhood is. You see males of color bonding, being successful, happy, thoughtful, powerful, activist, caring, teaching. And so these are the sorts of things that we want to happen with the Brotherhood Initiative that we're starting on campus. And we aim to achieve this by expanding and creating pathways to different educational, academic, and leadership opportunities. But we're in the very beginning stages of this, so stay tuned for that. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is increase the numbers of males of color that go to college. And not necessarily at the UW. So part of the outreach effort is trying to work with communities and schools to try to facilitate the skills acquisitions and able to promote college. But if they happen to come to the UW, we're going to wrap this brotherhood framework around them to make sure that 100% of them are retained and 100% of them graduate. Thank you. And be sort of ambassadors of the community that we're all proud of. So stay tuned for more information about the Brotherhood. But I just wanted to give a little context about how This project emerged from some of the principles that I was gratefully and proud to be a part of the last 3 years with this Equitable Parent School collaboration.